today? Are you going to do the same thing today you did yesterday and expect a different result? Change what you think, change what you do, and tomorrow will be different from today. You know why it's so simple for me? Because I have a lot of experience. You can only change your tomorrows by changing yourself today. Welcome to another edition of Mark's Inspiration. The Power is Within podcast. Is my mic on? Doesn't sound like it. Is it? We're on? Good? Okay.
Yeah. I can't hear you.
Test. Yeah, it's on.
Technical difficulties.
Right off the bat here, we're getting started. Okay, today we're talking about career women. What is the perfect career for a woman? I'm going to get bashed for that. Now, this is not against women. This is about women and about where women actually...
Yeah, I just couldn't hear anything on mine. Watch out. You don't want to spill that one.
Sorry. We'll get started here in a minute. We love women. If it weren't for women, we wouldn't be here because we all got a mother, don't we? I know I do. And hey, you guys do too. And they took care of you. Right. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight is mothers taking care of children.
Damn straight.
Sorry. Instead of putting them in daycare. Okay, now, just hold up if you're a woman. We're not bashing you for putting your kid in daycare. I realize there are women out there that have to work. They don't have a father. They don't have a husband around to support the family. And for whatever reasons, they have to put their kid in daycare. I had to put Kevin in daycare for a couple of years there because we didn't have a mother in the house. No one to take care of him, so he had to go to daycare. So I'm grateful it was there. So I'm not bad-mouthing daycare either. What I am talking about is what is the most valuable career for a woman? Is not raising the future of our nation, the future of the world, the most valuable thing that you could possibly do? I mean, rather than putting them in daycare and letting some minimum wage daycare worker raise them, nothing against minimum wage daycare workers, don't want to offend them. They have to work somewhere, but why do we do that? Now, a lot of people will say, I've heard this said, well, it takes two incomes. Hey, I won't argue with that. It takes two incomes if you want a $500,000 home and two Escalades in the driveway, a boat down at the lake, a couple jet skis, and a bunch of other stuff that you don't even have room for because you had to rent a storage shed to put it in. Most storage sheds are not for people moving. They're for people that have so much stuff they can't get in their 2 or 3 car garages, and they can't get it in their basement. So they have to rent a storage shed. And then they say, well, I wish I could keep the kids at home, but we just takes both their... Yes, it does, of course. When I was a kid, most people lived in 2-bedroom houses, even if they had 3 or 4 kids. My brother and I shared a room. I think we did have 2 vehicles, but some parents didn't have 2 vehicles. But they didn't live beyond their means. Now these kids in their 20s and 30s are building these $500,000 homes, $1 million homes. Sure, they both have to work at the expense of their child. That kid goes to daycare, let's say it's 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. They pick it up at 5, 6, 7 o'clock at night. And then both the parents are so wore out, they don't have time for the kid. So it goes to its room if it's old enough, watches videos or whatever it does, plays on videos. And the parents have no energy for the kid.
Yeah.
So... And then we wonder why we're having so much problems with our kids, all this depression. So what they're growing up being shown, regardless of what the parents tell them, is they tell them that they love them, but yet what they're saying is we love money and material things more than we love you because that's what we want to spend our time doing, is acquiring these things. So what do you guys think about that?
I think that personally, like for a woman and women's careers, I think that, well, in my personal opinion, if you have a high value man, I don't think that you need to have your kid go to daycare, because if the high value man's making enough money, which is what high value men do, you can stay home and take care of the kid. You know, it's kind of what as a woman, you're supposed to do. You're supposed to take care of the kid, watch.
True,
him.
but not everybody is going to be a high value man making six figures and 6 foot tall, and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So, what about in general, most people don't earn that high of income.
Yeah.
So, what about the other people? What I believe is they have to downsize. I mean, we really don't. God forbid you tell them they don't need 2 cars; they better have a damn fit. And then a lot of women would say, "Well, you just want a slave at home." Well, what is wrong with the woman staying at home and raising the kids? For centuries, that was okay. But that was when women were oppressed. They called themselves oppressed. They still say they're oppressed. They live in the most free, liberated nation in the world, one of them, and they still consider, not all of them, but a lot of them still say they're oppressed and put down by the patriarchy, by the higher authorities. But yet they have more rights, privileges, and actually more than men when it comes to family. The court system is so involved in the family now, but that's another video. Back to the daycare.
Yeah. Well,
go ahead.
Like I was going to say, it takes a lot for a woman to, I mean, in my personal opinion, it's a very big job to take care of kids, It's just as good enough as a regular job. Actually, in my personal opinion, it's more of a job to take care of kids because it takes a lot of responsibility and raising, I guess, the future nation.
Right. Well, think about this. I don't watch TV, but I'm aware of some of the shows on because people talk about them on YouTube on the content creators that I watch. When was the last time they had a show that ran for seasons about a wife staying home, taking care of the kids and the family, and being a good mother and wife, and the husband out working? Let me see. Leave It to Beaver back in the 60s. Was that it?
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm sure there was a couple more since then, but they do not portray that because it's like that is not the narrative. Because that narrative does not make a good consumer, a good woman consumer. She's not out there spending money, making money, and spending money. So it benefits the big business, and they want people to consume. So part of the problem is people are heavily influenced by television, social media, and all that. They show these women out there, and they're the few, the rare, making money, out there killing it and building their career and being happy and fulfilled. And few women are happy and fulfilled doing that because women are more relationship orientated. Yeah. They're more at nurturing. Well, you can see it with our daughter. I mean, my daughter, Paulina. Look how she's the one that always wants, hey, can't we have a family dinner? What are we going to do on Easter, Christmas? Let's sit down and have a family dinner. Yeah. She's always one. None of us ever say anything about it. Yeah. But she's the one. That's a natural inherent quality of a woman. They're more nurturing in the relationships, holding the family together, seeing that everybody gets together and builds loving, constructive relationships. But we don't have that because most women are out there working for the dollar, working for the man. And what happens? They go out there and they work for a man. Maybe her immediate boss is not a man, but most big businesses are run by men. Not all of them, but most of them. So she's out there supplicating herself, seeking the approval of another man. Then she comes home. She doesn't want to submit to her husband. Or she doesn't want to submit to the authority of the house. She doesn't even want to consider he's an authority. She wants to consider him as a partner, as an equal. And it's just someone has to be the authority, and someone has to be the higher end on the patriarchy in the family, if you want to say it that way. Because let me give you an example. Let's say you have 2 kids. They both get sick, bad diseases. Okay, your insurance doesn't cover enough to cover both of them. So you got to make a choice. One of them's going to get the good health care, and the other one we're just going to have to make do. Will a woman make that decision? Hell no. She's going to look at the man and say, Bill, what do you think we should do? He's going to have to make that decision. The man will make the tough decision. He'll decide which one gets the health care and which one doesn't, and he'll try to find another way that the one who didn't get it can somehow get the care. But he has to make that difficult choice. He may not like it. He may not like living with it, but by God, he'll make it. At least that's what masculine men do. And that's their position in the home. And that's the position they need to have because that's what they're made for. They can carry a heavier emotional load and a heavier physical load than a woman can. During World War II, they increased the workday from 8 hours to 12 hours, and the injury rate among women went up 150%, but among men it didn't. So you tell me where the women flourish and prosper. I won't say should be, but where they do better at in the home. And damn, we all know the kids need them. I mean, who doesn't want their mother to be home? What kid doesn't want his mother to be home? What kid likes to be hauled off to daycare every day for 10, 12 hours and then be picked up by their mother who's wore out and just has no patience for them? They don't want that. But yet, that's what we got going on here in the U.S.
Mhm.
Another thing too. Oh,
Go ahead.
I don't mean to
Go
interrupt.
ahead. Okay.
But with like daycare and stuff like that, we've talked about this before multiple times, but these kids are getting a mindset that the daycare workers already have, and then the parents wonder why their kids are arguing with them. They don't agree with them, or they're
Right.
going and being, I don't know.
Acting
I
up.
lost my topic, but go ahead.
Well, what I think you were trying to say is they wonder like why they're acting up and stuff like that, and then like it comes from picking up like the what's it?
The personality,
Yeah, the personality of the
traits, the
caretakers.
mood of the daycare, because
Yeah.
you become part of what you're around. And children are like a sponge. Until they get to be about 7 years old, it's called the impression period. And everything that goes into them goes in there because their conscious mind is not, how would I say, mature enough to decide if something is true or false. So if a daycare worker says, "Oh, you stupid little kid, why'd you do that again?" Nobody hears a daycare where he hears stupid. She's the authority. He says, "Oh, well, I must be stupid." I mean, it's said just simply. He hears that over and over during the day. He's raised up believing he's stupid. And then the parents wonder why he can't do anything because he's been programmed to be stupid. I mean, that sounds ridiculous, but that's the way the mind works until he gets old enough to differentiate between what is true and false.
What I was going to say about that is what I think in today's society is if you want to have a better child for the next generation, is that you should have it traditionally. So having a female role model, like say for instance the mother, stay home, and then have the male figure go out and work and do the traditional way.
Right.
And then if you want to have the money to spend and not really care as much as about your child, then I would just say keep it what you're doing and have both moms and dads work as I forgot what I was going to say, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, as the provider.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the provider.
Another thing about it is like, obviously, well, if you took a kid to daycare, I mean, obviously, there's the daycare lady, she's taking care of the kid, but there's that source of neglect from not feeling the attention.
Abandonment.
Yeah, you don't get the attention you want from your parents because they're tired. They don't want to. If they're working all day, they don't want to hear what you have to say. They're tired. They're busy. They just want you to go in your room because they're tired. They're working all day.
Exactly. And see, what parents think is, well, they're not abandoning their child. It doesn't matter to the kid. He doesn't realize what's going on. The child, I'm not abandoning you. I'll be back. Well, they don't actually have to say it, but they come back every night. So they think, well, I'm not abandoning that child. But that child will grow up with abandonment issues because the father or the mother, usually the mother, is gone. One of the parents is not there. So it doesn't really matter. Just like me, when I was young, I got taken to a lot of babysitters because that's the way it was back then, because both my parents were working. And I grew up with some abandonment issues. They weren't abandoning me, but I remember when they would take me to my grandmother's even, I would feel like they weren't ever coming back. So as a child, you don't know the difference. So to you, if they're leaving, you think they're not going to come back, even though they come back the next day. So you're putting kids, and that was with my grandparents. So you put kids in a place with strangers, they don't know anybody. And how do they feel when the parent leaves? Because kids rely on that parent for everything. That parent is like a god to them. They believe and feel like if that parent does not provide for them, they will die. Now, is that reality? No, because we have systems and structures put together to take care of kids that don't have parents. But that kid doesn't know that. He has not developed the rational capabilities to understand, the logic to understand that, well, if my parents did die or something happened to them, I would be taken care of. He or she doesn't know that at all.
Yeah, it's just like that one time Kevin. Whenever we were going to school the first day, Kevin didn't want us to leave. He was crying. We were gonna come back.
Yeah, he thought you guys were never coming back. He threw a dang fit. He was what, 4 years old. Maybe?
Yeah,
I think so.
something
3 or
like
4.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he wanted to go.
Well, and another thing I was gonna say too is, fortunately for me, I've had you around. Even when you're busy, I can talk to you, and just anytime, even if you're super busy, I'm like, Dad, can I talk to you? And I've had you as a parent, but I'm sure I'd be a completely different person if I had a mom here.
Right, exactly. It would be
I'd
better.
and if I had someone to be emotionally available to me, or give me that emotional, I guess, stability, I guess you would say, that I needed. But I'm sure I'd be a completely different person. I lost my topic again. Shoot.
You'd
Okay.
be
Yeah,
a completely different person if you had a mother.
Yeah,
That's what you're
yeah.
saying.
Yeah, one thing I was gonna say is, when you have somebody who's consistently leaving and coming back
Right.
over and over like that, you get to a certain point where you're used to it. So like, it's better off if they're just not there than if they were there constantly going in and out, in and out.
Well, speaking of which, that's the thing too. Is like with mom, dad, he knew it wasn't good for us for her coming in and out, and he made the decision that I'm sure it was a difficult decision, but to not have her here anymore because it was inconsistency.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I've had with dad over the years is consistency. I've had him to talk to, and he's not very emotional. He's more, because the way he grew up, he's harder.
Masculine.
Yeah, more masculine, but
Stern.
yeah.
Stoic. How about that?
Stoic, yeah.
Stoic doesn't mean I don't have feelings. I mean, you guys shared my feelings with
Mhm.
you, so it's not like I don't ever share feelings. Yeah, in that case, and I agree. I wish your mom would have stayed, and I continued to bring her back, hoping she would stay. Actually, I brought her back to the point where Mark was getting angry. I mean, he was ready to leave because I brought her back one more time, hoping it would work. But there again, she made the mistake. She wanted to go run, and she thought no matter what she did, I was always going to take her back. But it was destroying the family.
Mhm.
I had to let her go and not bring her back or allow her to come back again because of what I was told. I took you guys to the psychologist. They told me she's either got to come and stay or quit coming and going.
Yeah, and another thing I was going to say about daycare is that like the kid doesn't usually have that. If the mom and dad are tired, they don't have that tough love from their dad, and they don't have the sense of love from the mother. They don't get that, so
Right.
it's harder for them to, like, I guess you could say, understand that because they've never had it. So that's why they're like raised different, or they don't respect the mother or the father because they're always gone.
Yeah, and another thing too is, this is kind of not what you were talking about, but I would prefer to have a father because I'm a guy, and my dad, he's not very strict, he's not extremely strict, but he's more what's the word? More I can't even think of the
Rigid?
word. Yeah, I guess rigid
Stern.
or disciplined, when it
Yeah.
comes to us. I would prefer to have a dad, but I'm sure Paulina, and she's even talked to me about this multiple times, she would rather have a mother to nurture her and care for her.
Yeah, you need both sides. It's like you need both. You need both sides of the coin.
To have the optimal situation is to have a mother and a father in the home, and to have the father out working, and the dad really doesn't have to spend all this time with the kids. The kid just needs to know. It's like you guys. A lot of times, I notice you don't come up and talk to me, but you just need to know I'm there.
Yeah.
And I'm home every night. I remember that one time I was at a meeting, and I talked to a gentleman after the meeting. It was like 10:30 on Saturday night, and I didn't come home. And my God, they're all in the kitchen, like looking at me like I did something, like getting them. Where in the hell you been? Why didn't you call? It's like, sorry. They're so used to my consistency because I'm home every night by a certain time. And I get up every morning. I do the same thing every day over and over and over again. And they're used to that. And this gives them a feeling of stability, which is very important. Where kids being put in daycare, it is a routine, but they don't feel as stable with strangers as they would with their parents, as they would if their mom was home all the time and dad was out working. I mean, it is the optimal situation. And I had to back up again and say this bullshit about, well, it takes both incomes. If they did studies on how much it costs for to put a couple kids in daycare compared to what the woman is making outside the home, she's got to make at least, I don't know, it's like $30 to $50 an hour to justify that. And then how can you justify it by, okay, so what, this extra $20 an hour you're getting justifies not being there to raise your kids, not being there when your kid gets hurt, not being there if your kid gets sick, you got to work, or maybe you got to take off. And then a lot of these women they're pushing now for maternity leave that the employer should pay for when she gets pregnant. And then they wonder why men make more money than women, because the men are willing to work more hours. As I said about that study they did back when World War II about the injury rate raising when the hours are increased. Women get pregnant and they're off work for how many months? And then they expect the employer to pay for it. Why? And then they say they want equal rights across the board. Well, that's not equality to men. We don't have kids. We can't take off for maternity. But I hear some are even pushing now for maternity for the father.
For the father. Yeah,
what
I was going to say
hell?
that. Yeah.
Where are we going with this? We got a bunch of, no wonder the men are becoming weak. We need some strong men in this nation to stand up. And these things that are pushing for, I blame the men because they're the ones that have been running things for years, and they're allowing these laws and these things to be pushed off on men that actually emasculate men because they want approval of a certain woman. We're raised up in a society where you have to have the approval of your mother or the women in the daycare, because it's mostly women. Okay, and then you go to school, mostly women teachers. So kids, unless they have a masculine presence, they grow up believing that, well, I just got to supplicate to women, and they're stronger than I am.
Well, speaking of that too, it's like I've noticed too. What I've noticed is there's not a lot of guy teachers because of the fact that they're either teaching younger women or something like that, and they're looked as pedophiles or whatever.
Right.
Because they look at a girl one time, which I'm not saying. He'll look at her and she'll think, "Oh my God, he's looking at me like I'm, sexualized or whatever." And shit, I forgot my topic again.
Well, that reminds me of, it's off topic, but I'll say it anyway. Is it in England? They're starting to, or they have a law that if you look at someone, a man looks at a woman in a certain way, it's some kind of, they either have a law against her or trying to get a law. It's assault or something. I don't know what it is. So I guess the woman gets to decide. That's what I'm talking about. These laws they're making that are is completely made by women, but men are allowing them to happen because men are still running most of the governments. I mean, so she decides, okay, if I look at her and she thinks I'm handsome, that's okay. But if some ugly fat guy looks at her and she don't like it, then that's assault. What's the way he looked at me?
Yeah,
I've been through that crap before because I had this girl that would come up and hug me, and she tried to pull something on me and said, well, it was different. He hugged me. I felt different. I didn't ask her to come up and hug me.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I didn't do anything. I didn't touch her any, but yet she said that, and it caused me problems just because she said she felt that. Whether she felt that way or not, I don't know. I don't think so. But she did. Why'd she keep coming up and hugging me? But that's another story.
See, I would have that problem if I was a teacher because I'll look at somebody and I'll stare, but I'll be zoned out. I'll be thinking about a completely different subject.
Yeah.
I don't even be thinking about that person. I'll be thinking about what's going through
like,
my
for example,
head.
let's say you looked at a younger female one time and you were zoning out. They would take that as, you're looking at her some sort of perverted way or anything like that. You're just being a teacher, and sometimes you zone out. People are human. They focus on other things or think about other things, but they get demonized and they're looked at as a pervert or whatever it happens to be.
I've had teachers stare at me like they're zoned out. I'll be like looking around like, are you looking directly at me or like are you zoned out?
That's the thing. I know you zone out a lot, and if you were a teacher or something, and let's say you were zoning out and you were just looking at one certain, like let's say you were looking at the wall and a girl walked in front of you, boom, sexual harassment.
Let's run that article. Let's run that
Ben Shapiro video.
Ben Shapiro. That's what brought this topic on. And we got to get that AC fixed. I'm starting to break a sweat here. I don't think it's working. I don't think it's cooling down.
I'm super nervous, so I'm trying to stay on topic, but like I get.
Yeah, it's all right. I got some.
I don't understand for the life of me. I don't understand for the life of me why we are telling women that their best and greatest superpower, creating another human from their own body, is less important than working as an associate.
Because they want consumers, that's why.
Working 2,100 billable hours, checking footnotes, is somehow more important than raising the next generation of human beings that you made with your own body and then bringing them up. Now, some people may choose that. Fine. Again, for the 1,000th time. That's fine. Do what you want. It's a free country. But if you're going to indoctrinate women to believe that happiness comes from working as an accountant, but not from spending more time with your children, there's not a single person who on their deathbed said, I wish I had done one more doc review. I don't understand.
Go ahead and shut it off.
Of me.
And I've been saying the same damn thing he's saying for years. Same thing right there. They're just not going to find happiness there, and they don't. You just can't. They're out of. It'd be like a man staying home, and I'm not saying there aren't outliers and exceptions because some men can do it, but that would be like a man staying home and raising kids. First off, a man can't breastfeed, can't nurse. Although I think they're starting to make something anyway, and he just is not born with the nurturing abilities, relationship skills that a woman has inherently. I mean, the way it is now has worked well for thousands of years. And now since we had this women's lib started in 1960, all of a sudden there's a movement out there about women and men are the same. They're equal. We're not equal in certain respects. Women can do, and I say this all the time, women can do things men can't do. Do I feel oppressed by them because of that? No, I don't. I have no problem with a woman coming to work for me if she can do the same job. But there's few rare women out there that can come and do the job that we do because of the physical labor and the weights and the things we have to carry. And then they demand equal pay and they want this. It's like I said, their place, and I know they're going to get pissed off about this. Most of them, their place is in the home raising the kids because that's what they're excellent at. And here's something else too. A homemaker, that is belittled in our society today. I remember when your mom we were still together and things were good. They would ask her, what do you do? She said, well, I stay home and take care of the kids. Had 3 kids at the time. Well, don't you work? like she didn't do anything. That job, because I did it with you guys, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, no sick days, no days off, nothing. I've been up at night carrying kids in my arms that had a fever, had to take them to the hospital. I've done all that. What more honorable position could there be than that for a woman?
Yeah.
It's not a man's job. I can do it, but I guarantee you I didn't do it as well as a woman could have. Do I feel like I'm belittled or oppressed because of that? No. Do I know my place? Yes. My place is to protect and to provide. And a woman's place is to raise those kids, nurture them, and help keep the family strong and together.
It's a very honorable thing to do too.
But it's belittled in our society because it does not fit the narrative, the agenda of we need consumers. A woman at home is not consuming like a woman out there working. And she doesn't pay taxes either. That's something else they discovered after World War II. You got both people working, it's more tax money. So that is the narrative that is pushed. I don't know if it's for that reason, but that's an obvious possible reason. Money, the greatest motivator in history.
Another thing about that is as a man, you're supposed to be the provider, but nowadays there's so many men that stay at home. Like there's a term for them; they're called house husbands.
Men are being feminized.
Yeah.
Well, you seen that video I showed you about the guy who was stay at home, I guess husband or something like that.
Yeah, the house husband. That's what they call him.
Yeah.
And he uses her car to buy her drinks and everything like that. And that's the thing. When they have kids, the kids are going to look at their dad and the way he was acting. They're going to.
You need a masculine presence in the home and a feminine presence. And the problem we have now is we've got so many women acting like men. And I'm not blaming them. They're raised up like that. To shake a man's hand like a man, to go out and have a career, to go out there and make an impression on the world. What about the kids? Who's going to raise them? Oh, the daycare. That's who's going to raise them.
And that's the next generation too. It's like, when they're in the daycare, they're getting this mindset that some people have, and I'm not going to say any mindset is wrong or right, but it's a mindset that you might not agree with.
Well, we got to break down to the family. 50% of divorces or of marriages end in divorce. 70% are initiated by the woman. Yeah. And who suffers the most out of that? The kids.
Another thing about it is, let's say for example, you have a daughter and a son. When the father comes home, obviously he's gonna see that his dad's hands are beat up, they're rough. He's gonna want to be just like his dad, and
if not better.
Yeah, just as the mother stays at home, the daughter's gonna pick up what her mom's doing. That's just how it is.
And that's the thing. It's like Dad was saying. There's nothing wrong with staying at home and taking care of your kids. But it's nowadays just look like you want a slave, like you've told me multiple times. And what's the difference? And Dad said this before. What's the difference between a man going out and working and a woman staying home and taking care of her husband, kids, and everything like that?
What's the difference between a man going out and slaving away and doing the jobs? See, women in America, in the West, think that they don't need men. Well, they don't need men directly because men have set up structures and systems to make it appear. Even I would call it an illusion that women don't need men. Who keeps the electric going when it's storming out there? Who's built all those structures? Who builds the train tracks? Who does all these big high-rise buildings, these sky rises? Who does all that? Who's down the sewers? Or maybe less than 1% of them are women. I'd say far less than 1%.
They usually
men are doing that. Without the men, they could not survive. And in respect to that, without women, we could not survive. But if we get out of our place, how's society going to function?
Yeah,
we got a bunch of women out there being men. And
another thing I was going to say is, sorry, I got a buddy. I won't disclose any names, but he goes to work. He pays the electric. He buys the groceries and all that, and his mom consistently stays home all the time. She stays home. He practically takes care of his mom at this point.
His son, yeah.
He takes care.
I could understand that, taking care of your mom because she's
that's fine.
Yeah.
But for example, the man is taking care of the woman.
But for example, like a girlfriend, I know somebody. I'm not gonna say any names. Like you said, there's this guy who's consistently working. Staying out there 24/7, cutting down trees or something like that. And his girlfriend is home all the time, and she's just not. She doesn't even clean dishes. She doesn't clean up the house or nothing like that. Yeah. And then she's constantly arguing with him or
nagging.
Trying to make a.
Each one has to do his part. That's no different. Yeah, and there again, they go back saying you want a slave. Hell yes, if I have a woman, she's staying home. She better be keeping the house clean, cooking food, taking care of her job is the home. My job is to provide for the home, to pay those bills, the electric, the water, the rent, whatever it happens to be, to provide her with safety and the provision, the food, and all that. And like you say, a lot of women would listen to this and say, "Oh God, you want a slave?" I want to, these women nowadays, most of them, not all of them, want a traditional husband to provide those traditional things, but yet they want to be a untraditional wife. They want to run, they want to go out with their friends, they want to party with their girlfriends, but yet they want him to give them all those things.
Yeah, it's just like that the last podcast we had, there was that girl who was I don't know, maybe she was 20, 21, but she wanted the love from the man. She wanted him to she wanted a provider, she wanted a man she could love, but at the same time she wants to be that, what she said, I don't want to use the word, so we'll just say, but she wants to live that garden tool lifestyle.
Yeah. Right. Right.
That's another thing too, especially nowadays. These girls, they want to live the garden tool lifestyle, and then they want a man like we talked about, and I think it was last podcast, the 6-figure man.
Right.
But are they worthy? They're not worthy of that because they done been, I guess you would say, ran through. Yeah,
that's what they call it.
Ran through. They done been ran through, and then they want this guy who is so high value, but this guy has built something for himself, and these girls are just going out and sleeping with men.
Yeah,
I guess you would say.
Well, that's kind of like how a military husband and a wife works. It's like she stays home and does everything, and I don't know how like the money works in that kind of relationship, but eventually the wife will go off and cheat in some scenarios. I won't say all, but that's kind of what it's like.
The funny thing about that too is like a woman is, well, what I've noticed and what I've heard, a woman is less likely to cheat on the guy that goes to prison than the guy who's going to the military.
Right.
Because the guy that goes to prison is the bad boy. She'll go and visit him and everything like that. But the guy that's going to war, trying to protect the country, she won't call him or won't, FaceTime him.
I think part of what happens too, if we go back to the women working in the woman's career, she's out there working, and all of a sudden, and she's got her kids in daycare if she has kids, and she's not feeling fulfilled. All of a sudden, she feels like this isn't right. I'm not happy with my husband. I'm not happy. And then, of course, 70% of the divorces are initiated by the woman, and women go more by their emotions and feelings. So all of a sudden, they don't feel like they're in love. They don't feel fulfilled. And they think, well, I must be with the wrong man. I don't feel like I love him anymore. And then they divorce because their girlfriend, well, the girl, you can do better than that. You can do better. You don't have to. If you're not happy, do what's right for you. But a man, they tell him to do what's right. A woman, they tell her, do what's right for you. Your truth. I think Jada Smith's a good example of that. And
yeah. Well, speaking of, like you were saying, like they go to work and then they don't feel fulfilled and they feel like they don't love their man anymore. I've had the same situation. I've had a girlfriend that worked a lot and then she didn't feel like she was in love with me anymore. But I think it was more she doesn't feel fulfilled.
Exactly.
Because she doesn't get the same feeling if she were to stay home and take care of, like say, kids or dogs or whatever happens to be. And I lost my topic again.
Well, I know 20 years ago or 30, I watched this talk show, Sally Jesse Raphael or something like that. And there was a man on there, and he said he wanted a traditional wife to stay home, cook, clean, take care of the kids. And he got berated by the audience of women. And that was 30 years ago. So you can imagine now, if I were in front of a group of modern day women, I'd be a misogynist, a hater. What is so hateful and wrong or misogynistic about me wanting to take care of my woman? I want her to stay home where she's safe. Doesn't mean she can't go to the grocery store and buy food. Doesn't mean she can't go out to the park with the kids. No, I don't want to run around night with guy friends. I don't want her out having lunch with guys. In my day, that was unheard of. Women didn't have guy friends if they had a steady man they were in love with. Why would they have guy friends? These guys, they're not their friends. They want to have sex with them. So you're just setting something up for disaster, for something to happen. And I watched an interview the other day when this guy was interviewing men and women about this topic. And most of the men said, I don't want her to have guy friends. And they asked the women, they said, well, why, they should be able to have guy friends. But when it turned around and they asked the women, can he have girlfriend? No. They all said no. But, it's a double standard. Why is that? Because they know that those guy friends want to be with him. And they don't want the same thing because they know those girls might want to be with their guy or he might want to be with them.
Yeah.
So there's no sense in that. Like I said, that was unheard of back when I was younger. But now it's like, what do they call that? Small dick energy, insecurity. If you say, I don't want you hanging around with guys. What does she need to be hanging around with guys for?
Yeah, another thing I was gonna say is here's a perfect example, and it's still done. Like it has never changed. At least, well, as far as I know, it has never changed. And if a perfect example is our dog Bailey. As soon as she had the puppies, she stayed there. She stayed there, took care of the. Took care of the
He's
pups.
comparing women
Oh,
to
yeah.
dogs. Stop it.
Oh my
Oh,
goodness,
yeah.
you massage
No, that's not what we're doing here.
Yeah, no, but like it's.
But you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, we all have that animalistic instinct, we all have it. If you have kids, the woman's supposed to stay home and take care of the kids.
Well,
it's and the man is like supposed to protect the family. He's
and
supposed to be the one-
provide. Why? Yeah. Why don't we call him a slave? What's the difference? He's out there slaving away. Is he a slave? Have you ever heard a man say, when a woman says, "I want a man to provide and protect for me"? Have you ever heard a man say, "You want a slave"?
yeah.
They don't say it because they understand the logic of how things work.
I've
Yeah.
noticed. Oh, go ahead.
Another thing I was gonna say is, for example, I guess you would say, we'll just say monkeys. Monkeys, for example.
Now he's comparing.
Now you're comparing. You're
Oh,
comparing
man.
comparing
You're
animals.
There
His
are-
name is Claude. If you want to badmouth him, hang on here. He
What
is.
they'll do is they'll push all the whenever they're in the breeding season, they'll push all the beta monkeys away, and she'll try to find the alpha.
Yeah.
She'll push all of them away, and then whenever she has kids, she'll what's it called? The betas. She'll have the betas provide. She'll have the beta monkeys provide while
Really?
while the alpha
I didn't know
monkeys
that,
are doing
actually.
something else. She'll have them like take care of the monkeys or go get food. Like she doesn't.
What do we call a study of monkeys? Monology or what? No.
I don't know,
I
but
don't
what
know.
they do is the only time they will give themselves away to the beta monkeys is if they have something to provide. But as soon as they're in the breeding season, they won't give them any attention. She'll
Well,
go to the alpha.
Really?
Speaking of which, it's like we're all animalistic in general. Like even though we think we're so sophisticated,
Exactly.
we have that animal instinct. And another thing too, you were speaking about animals. I think it's a lioness or something like that, or lions' girlfriends or whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
They'll bite the guys or the lion's balls to try to make a mate, because they want to have kids.
Yeah.
And he's weak. If he doesn't want to have kids, they keep biting him. And if they don't have kids, then they find somebody else. They find another mate. Which, speaking of which, it's like now. I lost my topic again, man.
Yeah, one thing I
keep
was going to
losing
say
it.
about that is, for example, if there's like baby cubs and they're males, what the father will do is he'll wiggle his tail around, and the little cubs that they pretty much use the tail to train on how to be stronger. Like he'll how do I say this? He'll move the tail around, and they'll play with it until they're tough enough to challenge the lion.
And then speaking of which, with that, that's the thing. If a lion finds a lioness or whatever happens
Tiger.
to be,
That's
A lot-
what
no, tiger is different. But we'll say
I'm
lioness.
tripping.
But what they'll do is they won't take care of the kids. It's somebody else's kids. You know what I'm saying? They'll leave them out in the wild.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the same thing with nowadays stepfathers. They take care of these kids that aren't theirs, and then they, like you've told me before, a woman will take on the kids before, I guess, the man or something like that, or
They'll put the kids
above them.
Oh,
above
yeah,
the man,
above.
Now in a family they shouldn't. Yeah, that's usually if you're dating a woman, single mother, and the kids are from somewhere else. She'll say, "My kids come 1st."
Mhm.
But in a man and a woman, they have to come. The man has to come before the kids, and the man needs to put his woman ahead of the kids because without their unity together, they cannot raise a strong family.
Mhm.
Very important. Let's
Man,
move on. Let's
nervous.
move on to daycare horror stories. Here's one here.
got-
Sometimes kid.
all got white shirts.
Now let's move on down to number 10.
Besides that.
These are daycare. What are these?
Nah, you ain't watch it.
10 horrifying child care stories. This is what can happen if you put your kid in child care. Now, of course, this doesn't happen all the time, but there are things that happen that you don't even know about that aren't quite as tragic as this. Sometimes kids get into disagreements over sharing a toy.
It's mine, not yours.
Let me see. That's the start. Let's
Don't
go.
play with me.
Number 9.
I'm so nervous I can't even keep it.
Boarding school from hell. There you go. Let's see what a woman named Anna Elizabeth Young ran a group she called the House of Prayer for all people near this town, Florida. During the 1980s and 1990s, she opened up her home as a child care center, and parents were happy to leave their kids with this woman, who seemed like a very sweet and devout Christian. Besides the normal daycare hours, she also offered overnight babysitting. Well, how nice. And called her home a religious boarding school. Let's see. Of course, the members of Young's prayer group had no idea they were being manipulated into joining her cult. She told her followers that if their children misbehaved, it meant that the devil was inside of them. She claimed that if the parents left the kids overnight, she would exorcise their demons and teach them to be sweet little angels. Little did the parents know that she had been tutoring children in her home since the late 1960s. In 1992, Young gave a child a bath, but poured chemicals all over his body, which left burns on his skin that parents were able to notice once they got home. Young was charged with child abuse but ran from Florida to avoid arrest. She was finally caught and sentenced to about 6 months in prison in 2001. If a man did the same thing, it'd give him 10 years. That's another video, another episode. She was finally caught and sentenced to about 6 months in prison to them. Young, now 75 years old, was charged with murder for the death of a toddler who was tortured and starved. Investigators believe there could be many, many more abuse victims. A number of adults came now in their 40s and 50s have come forward to all police in their investigation. So there you go. There's a good horror story there for child care. Here's another thing. You never know. Oh, but let's say, well, I take my kids to licensed daycare. Yeah, how strict are the guidelines on that? I mean, you just never know what the people are doing. Here's the deal. Your kids are there with people you don't know. People you don't know. And it's the same thing with your homes. You never know what goes on behind closed doors. At least if it's in your home, you know what's going on behind closed doors. But when it's in someone else's home or daycare, you have no idea how those kids are going to be treated or how they're being treated. Well, and kids a lot of times won't even say anything.
Well, take for example, our sister. She was in foster care, and you had kind of the same close to experience with that.
Right.
And turns out, 20 years later, he was sexually abusing children
for years, and before my daughter was even in there. Yeah.
And that's the same example. It's like foster care or any sort of daycare in general. It could happen.
Well, the bottom line is you don't know what the people are like. You don't know what's going on there, and it's pretty private and protected, and nobody can see that. So that's something to consider, too, when you're taking daycare. But so many people will say, I have to work. Yes, I'll back it up again. You have to work if you want all those things, all that stuff. And we have become a materialistic society. We think we got to outdo the Joneses. We got to have the next best thing. And what? At the cost of our children and their future.
And the next generation, too.
Yeah,
Right.
really.
Yeah. I mean, like, raise your kid, and then when he becomes rich, like a rich YouTuber or something like that, maybe
like
that.
Mr. Beast, right?
Like
Yeah.
PewDiePie.
That's the thing.
PewDiePie.
Mr. Beast gives all his money away, like pretty much. That's what
Yeah,
he says,
he's openly admitted that he spends like at least 85 to 95% of like his money revenue on just his next video.
Yeah, he was raised by a single mother, too.
Yeah.
Because I was watching a documentary on him today. I didn't finish it.
Yeah, well, it's
Oh, so you watch him?
So,
Right.
well, that's the thing too. Is like
He actually commented on one of my first videos and told me to put a little more content in there and wish me luck.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
and not dissing single
I'm pretty sure I
parents.
heard about
Not dissing single parents. They could do it, but having both parents is always, I guess you would say, it's not better, but it's if both parents are
Well,
functioning.
statistically, it is proven
Yeah.
that it's better to raise
if they're
the mother and the
functioning
father,
good,
yeah.
Men are
being good
beasts.
parents.
All right. Any more comments, boys?
Questions?
Questions? We have any
Yeah,
questions
we
in
have
the
any
chat?
questions in the
I'm just nervous.
in the chat.
Slouching over.
In the chat.
Sparty says every woman has a male boyfriend or a male friend who will be her next boyfriend, and that's true. And we go back to we talked about husband and wife, where the woman has guy friends, or she thinks she should be able to go out with her girlfriends or have guy friends. She's got guys set up just in case things don't work out. And here's what happens with that sometimes too. You got the woman out there, she's going out with her guy friend because the husband doesn't want to seem insecure. Okay, things aren't going too good at home with the husband. But this guy friend, he understands. He's caring, he's understanding, because he doesn't have to live with her. He doesn't have to face the rigors and the challenges and the problems of being married, having a family, supporting a household. but this guy understands. So that's just a setup for something to happen, for her to go off with this guy because he understands and her husband doesn't. Yeah, he understands because he's not dealing with the pressures and the problems of daily life.
Mhm.
So that's why I say it's not good for a woman to have guy friends.
It's like what Steve Harvey said, just waiting for the chink in the armor.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Exactly.
that's the thing. Another thing too is like when girls have quote unquote guy friends, they're the beta orbiters. They're just waiting for. They're waiting for a sort of I don't know, argument with a boyfriend so they could get in there, you know,
Yeah.
and they'll act like, oh no, you know, if I had a chance to sleep with you, I wouldn't do it, but you know they would.
Yeah,
no.
and another thing I was gonna say about that is here's the thing: if a girl has guy friends and she's hanging out with those guy friends, and you start getting concerned about that, all of a sudden you're insecure.
Yeah.
It's like okay,
Small dick
small-
energy.
yeah, I was gonna
Small
say
dick
small-
energy.
yeah.
it's like okay, but okay, what happens if he sleeps with you? Then what?
You don't
Is
trust
that
me. You
still-
don't
is
trust
that-
me.
You gotta trust
Yeah.
That's what.
Yeah, he's
You
like,
gotta trust
oh, so you're still guy friends, but you'll let him sleep with you. It's like really, you
well,
you
here's
must
the
be
deal.
some really good friends.
Kind of go back to what Henry said to add on to that. I've heard somebody say once, okay, they're guy friends. If you call them up at midnight and ask them to come on and have
Yeah, and
sex with
sleep
you,
with
how
you.
many of them would say, oh no, we're just friends?
0.
Yeah, 99.9% would come over there.
I
What's
mean,
that?
No,
Unless-
they're
yeah,
willing to
yeah.
test it out.
Yeah.
They're willing
But
to
even
test the
that,
waters.
even that,
Yeah, I was gonna say,
my ex had gay guy friends. It's like they got the equipment, so
I mean, there's
and
even
they
those.
like to do something.
Wow.
with
There's
equipment.
even
So
those-
even there, there's the risk.
There's even the jokes where guys will say, acted gay until I finally got into sleepover.
Yeah.
Or
Oh,
There's
Or,
yeah.
What's that?
Well, the joke. Okay, so the joke is what these guys do is they act gay and then they get in the sleepover and then they
like
act
girls,
like
girls,
sexual towards the females. You know,
girls will like be like, "Oh my god, let's kiss him," or "Let's show him our."
our
Our-
boobs or
our boobs
butt
or-
whatever
Oh,
it
yeah.
happens to be. You know.
Yeah.
yeah.
All right.
So-
Well, I think I'm going to wrap it up early tonight because I'm going to do Dude Party tonight, and it's at 11 o'clock here if I can stay awake.
Dude,
So check
barking.
that out, Dude Party, Modern Life Dating with John. I'm not sure what the topic is tonight. And then tomorrow, check it out on Thor Markison on YouTube. I'll be doing a show with him about, I forgot what the show is about. But anyway, that's at 6 o'clock Central Standard Time. It's called The Elders Council. So for you young guys out there, if you want to get some wisdom, check it out. It'll be a lot of good stuff on there. A lot of good wisdom for you. And we're going to wrap it up. Thanks for joining us. Wait a second. What?
book
Oh,
contest.
the book content.
Oh, the
book review contest.
yeah.
Oh, I'm not doing that yet.
Okay.
We're going to do a book review contest, but not now. To celebrate our 2 years on the air, I think we hit 2 years about maybe first or middle of April. I'm going to do a contest with a big prize,
Coming soon. Yeah.
cash. Okay? Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next Saturday. Take care.